Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, How to Configure Views and Charts in Dynamics 365 CRM. My name is Katie, and I'll be the facilitator today. This is a pre-recorded webinar, so if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll have a response for you within 24 hours after this webinar ends. This session will be posted on our blog, as well as shared with you later this week. Now, I would like to introduce our presenter today, Leanne Pahal, Senior Solutions Specialist on our Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement team. Leanne, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Katie mentioned, I'm Leanne Pahal, Senior Solutions Specialist here at Encore Solutions, and in today's session, we're going to look at some of the configuration options available to enhance the interface of Dynamics CE, focusing mainly on views and charts. We won't be going through the technical process on how to actually configure the views, but instead look at how the same data may be displayed differently to give you some ideas on how the CE solution could be enhanced for your company. So let's flip over into the Dynamics environment and take a look. If you're a current user of Dynamics CE, you'll be likely familiar with the look and feel displayed on the screen right now. With the default setup, each time I click on an area in the navigation, the default list is displayed in the main area of my screen. And you'll hear me say references to list, view, grid, subgrid. Those are all interchangeable, referring to the same. It's data in the backend that we're displaying when we choose the columns and the filters, and it returns a list type view as you see on the screen. For our examples today, we're going to use the opportunity area of Dynamics CE Sales. My user's default is the All Opportunities view. So before we get into the different options on how to enhance the views, let's take a look at the features of the default views just for any of you who are new to the CE solution. With this view, I'm able to see a regular list of records, again with the default columns, and I can use this button here to add or remove columns as I like. On each of the headers, I have the option to sort or filter by that field. So I can do some basic filtering right here in the view. I also have the Edit Filters button onto the right-hand side where I can add in more complex or advanced filtering, so filtering on related records or groupings. You'll see there's a search bar here at the top of every view, and that lets me search by a keyword. So depending on where I am, accounts or contacts opportunities, when I click in the search bar, it will list the fields that it's going to search, and it's a begins with search. So let me put in air here and I'll hit enter. It's going through all of my opportunities and bringing back any opportunities where the word air is any of those three fields. So I have 2 records returned. Now, if I add a wildcard, a star at the beginning of the word air, it's going to search all of those fields to see a contains with. So now we're seeing more records returned, and it has the word air depending on anywhere in those 3 fields. So this default view is a static list. If I click around, I know I'm not going to change any information. It is read-only. Unless the column changes, you can see that it's blue and underlined for these other fields that are lookups. So I'm able to actually click. You can see my icon change from a pointer to a hand. And if I click one of those fields, it'll take me to the form of that record. So I've just clicked on the actual opportunity name, and now we'll see the opportunity displayed on my opportunity form displayed on my screen. And here's where I can see the detailed information. But what I wanted to highlight is in a lot of cases when we're looking at this information, we do our filtered list, we click to view an opportunity, then we click the back button to go back to our list and pick another record. So in case you aren't familiar, there's a little icon here at the top called the Record Set Navigator. And if we click that icon, it will bring us the records that were returned in our filtered view. So see, these are only the ones that we had error in the word. And I'm able to quickly navigate in between them with the form displayed on the right-hand side of my screen. So it's a much easier way for me to navigate around the records rather than going back and forth in between the view and the form. So let's go back to our main view. Now the name of the view is at the top. So mine says all opportunities. And if I click here, I can see many other views that are available. And these are all, again, the same data. It's just we pick which columns and what filters and we give it a name. So we have one opportunities, open opportunities. Any of these are system views, so available to everyone who has access to the opportunities. these ones with the little head behind them are personal to me as my user. I've created them, made my own columns and filters, and saved it with a name. Now, in your environment, if you've been using Dynamic CE for a number of years, this list can get large. We've seen some companies where they have views specific to each geographical area or department, just so that it's easier for them to filter and get to the information they need quickly. So what I'd like to show you today is how you can use the charts to filter instead of having that large list of views. So for instance, maybe we change from having views that say Eastern Canada, Western Canada, all of those views already saved, just having one called All Opportunities, and we use the chart to filter instead. So we click on Show Chart. Our list of charts that are available for us to view is here in the drop-down list. We're going to pick Opportunity by Status. And now if you watch the records on the right-hand side, when I click a part of my pie, the records on the right-hand side are refreshed. So this is effectively filtering my records just with one click. So rather than me going to the filter on status region and saying filter by open, I'm able to just simply click here and see all of the 46 records returned on the right-hand side. You'll notice that if I click on one of the pieces of the pie, it allows me to drill down. So we can do further filtering in here as well. So let's pick territory. And this time I'll say a bar chart. So now I'm quickly seeing all of my open opportunities by territory. I can click and see Central Canada. It'll refresh on the right, or Eastern Canada, for example. And of course, I can continue to filter. So I can look maybe at my rating. I'll make that back to a pie. And let's say I want to look at all my warm opportunities in Eastern Canada. Rather than me building a bunch of filters in the list and then changing them each time, I can simply use the charts to click and filter along. I can go back to my open opportunities and look at another territory as well. Another way of using the charts is for aggregate information. Sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to find in out-of-the-box situations in CE. So if we look at this one here, we have estimated revenue by territory. So it's giving us our territory and our numbers. So we could be looking, for instance, at only our one opportunities. If I switch this to the one opportunities, my chart will update and show me updated numbers. If I need to use this for more detailed information, I can expand the chart, which will pop it out into a larger view. Now in here, it's still, I'm able to drill down just like we saw previously. I'm also able to change my views, but it's bigger. So I am able to interact with it a little bit nicer in a larger view. And keep in mind as well, if you have some presentations and need this type of information, you can also just quickly take a screenshot of this and pop it into your presentation. So that's another way for you to use the views, is besides just the filtering, aggregate numbers as well to get a quick total by looking at your different filters and applying your chart. So if you're not using charts today, I recommend looking in CE to see what charts are already available, and then also keep in mind which might be useful. They can be created for every different area really quickly and added into the navigation, so they're easy to create and display, and then you can start using the filtering on that immediately. So let's close the chart and we'll go back to my main default view of all opportunities. So there's numerous different types of view controls that are available within CE, and most are not enabled until we pick the default and which options we'd like on each specific navigation area. So we're looking at the opportunities right now, but I just want to mention that for the purposes of this demo, we'll focus on opportunities, but the same situations, the same options for views and charts apply for all of the areas of on the navigation on the left-hand side. We can also specify each area differently. So I can have a different experience when I click on opportunities than I do if I click on accounts. For the purposes of today's demo, I've enabled numerous different types of controls just to show you. So this isn't something that would happen in your real environment. Ideally, you'd select only one or two types of views which are available, and that would be displayed to the user or automated for the user. So keep that in mind when seeing my list today. So as we go into the next types of views, we can see this default view. We have 70 rows, it's read-only, and we're familiar. Let's take a look at one of the other options. This is also a read-only grid. You can see it's very similar to what we just saw, read-only. I have my links for those 3 records, but at the bottom I have numerous letters. We call these a jump bar. So you may be familiar with this if you've been using CE for a long time, that this jump bar was a default in previous versions and they've removed it for the current versions. But it's an option that can be enabled and used for quick filtering. So if I click on one of the letters in the jump bar, it will quickly take me to the list of opportunities that start with the letter B or the letter E. And this is based on the field that I'm sorting. So I could change this, for example, to sort by customer instead. Let's go to T. Now I'm seeing all opportunities for customers that start with T or with N. And I can do so for any of these fields that are in the view. I can sort, and then I'm able to use the jump bar down below to filter. So it's a really great way to quickly filter records without having to go into every column and do filter by. I can quickly jump and navigate my list. And it's really helpful if you have a large list of records as well, just to index them and jump where you need to. So the default views have unlimited scrolling, which is beneficial, and that's what we'd want in today's world. But you do have the option to turn on the paging that we had in previous versions. You can see at the bottom here, I have one of 25 of 70. And that's because my personal user that I'm logged in as today has my default settings under the gear and then personalization settings. My settings are set to 25 records per page, but you have the option of setting yours to 25, 50, 100, or 250. And what this does is it just pages the record. So I'm not scrolling forever. I have to only go down to 25 and then I click next page to see the next records. So although I wouldn't probably use that on my own computer when I'm working in Dynamics, if I had a tablet or if I was often on a phone, maybe I'd like a different experience. I don't want to scroll forever. I want to use the paging. You can have that set up that the different devices have a different experience in the views. So maybe I have paging on my tablet, but not on my computer. So some organizations may want to enable the paging if we don't like the users to continuously scroll or use different devices. So you can keep that in mind. It's just a feature that can be enabled. Now we've looked so far at only the read-only grids. So let's take a peek at an editable grid. So again, similar look and feel, but you'll notice that now when I click here, I'm able to actually edit these. I can interact with these fields that are on the form. You see that this one is locked. It does keep the same process as if I am in a form here in the editable grid, so I'm not allowed to edit things that I wouldn't be able to if I opened up the record. You can see here this opportunity is closed, so every single field is locked. I can't change anything because that record is read-only. But this does allow me to make changes on the fly right here in the grid view. It will keep in mind my security or my rights. If there's field security, I still won't be able to edit that field, but it's a nice interface to be able to make some quick changes. So let's say I'm a sales manager and at the end of the month, I'm reviewing my list of opportunities that I have. I see this one, I'm familiar with it. I can see that it, is immediate. It has a high probability, but it's listed as cold. I probably meant to change that to hot and forgot. So I can do so right here, make some changes to the probabilities. Maybe this one is really cold. I'm going to make it down to 30. So I can go ahead and interact with these right in the screen rather than going to each form. So it will save for me with this little save button on the top. I can hit save to commit my changes. So keep this in mind as it's an interesting way of being able to make changes. If rather than going into each record into the forms, I can see everything as a view, as a big list, and then make changes in that list as well. Now you may have noticed that there's a group by on this form view as well. This is a fantastic way to be able to group records just for how I'm managing my work. So I don't, especially in an editable grid, I don't want to accidentally change the wrong thing. So maybe I would just like to look at those opportunities that have immediate time frame and take a look at the probability here and see if they're realistic. Maybe I need to make some changes here. And I can collapse or expand the groups as I need to. So just a way of being able to group by whatever it is that I wanted to group by, I can do so here just to manage my work and make it more effective. So we'll just go back to the default grid here. I want to show you another option here, which is Power Apps Grid Control. This is the current grid. You can see it's very similar to the ones that we had before, but we see some colors. As a note, this one is set to read only, but it's just a setting I picked on the grid. It could also be editable if that made sense. The colors are tied to the choice fields that we have for our opportunities. So those are the drop downs. Within the dropdowns, we're able to assign colors to each of the options. So something that makes sense for that option set. So maybe red is bad, green is good for a status reason, but yet red is good for a rating. So you can make them all applicable to each different field. But it's a great way to use a visualization to highlight different types of things. So maybe if it's red, I know I need to look at it. Or if it's orange, it's something I should watch and monitor. Something for a visual cue for the users to be able to identify right here in the grids without having to go through each opportunity and look at it. Just highlight it, give it more of a nice interface for the user and focus their group. On this grid, I've also enabled the option for group by. So if we click on any of these headers, before we just saw the sorting and the filter. Now I can move my columns left or right, but I can also group by. So if I click on group by, very quickly have all of my opportunities grouped by status, and we can see the count of the opportunities in each status showing. Expanding the groups, I can see the details as well. So I'm able to group on numerous of the fields depending on just highlighting whatever I have in here, picking them and picking group by. Any of the numeric fields though, they have a different option, which is totals. So in here, I'm able to add in, for example, some sums. I could add in a maximum of my actual revenues to see. Maybe I would like to see my average probability. So I can add in min, max, sum, counts, a way for me to see some aggregate information really quickly about my records right here on the screen. So historically, this has been maybe more difficult to find. I could get some of this information for charts, or else I'm ending up printing reports or Power BI reports or popping in Excel. This is a great way to be able to slice and dice your data and look at some aggregate information right inside of Dynamics CE. So I'm grouping right now by status, but maybe I would like to group instead by rating. I can go ahead and do that. You see the numbers are all updated right away. Now, those are some basic fields that we're grouping by, but I'd also like to highlight the ability to group by dates. So this is the estimated close date. And if I group by that, I have more options: year, quarter, month, fiscal periods, etc. So I'm going to pick month, and it's going to show me very quickly my actual estimated revenue by month. So this is great if you think, for example, on your accounts, you're talking to one of your customers and want to know how much they spend year over year. I can very quickly get that information just by grouping the opportunities, filtering to their opportunities and grouping it here. I have all of the information straight at my fingertips. And again, if we expand, we're able to see all of the information here. You can see at the bottom, I'm getting all of my totals. If I ungroup now, so we'll ungroup by estimated close date, I get back to my main view that we saw initially. So this is my main view, but I still have my totals at the bottom. So you don't have to group in order to show the totals. You're able to just add the totals to the main group. And this is specific to me for my user. I can navigate away from here and come back and I'll still see my totals. I am able to refresh the screen in order to remove the totals, but it is nice that they stay and I can configure it so that I can quickly see. If I wanted to, for instance, filter to only one opportunities, I could do that. And now I've seen my numbers here at the bottom are refreshing for me. So a quick way to be able to see that information, see aggregates right inside of Dynamics, which previously was maybe more difficult to see. Now, focus so far has been on these main views for the opportunity. We saw the default read-only, we saw some updated with the jump bar, the editable grid, these colors, the group bys. This is also available for all of the subgrids. So if in your company you have grids that you access from other records, you're able to use these same different controls and highlights of the colors or the grouping that we had on those. So let's pop into one of our customers, which is Northwind Traders. And on their form, we have a couple of opportunity tabs. So let's look at the opportunity details tab. So you're probably familiar with something like this. We can always see our opportunities by our accounts. And normally it's just a static view. So in here, we have a couple of the enhancements turned on. So we have the totals at the bottom. And of course, we do have our group bys available. We have colors. So we're able to add that actually right on the subgrids as well. So it's not just the main views that these controls are restricted to. Another area that I just wanted to highlight quickly was this card-like view. So you'll probably notice if you're an existing CE user that as your screen changes, the views change from the big read-only grid that we've seen with a scroll bar for all of the columns. As our screen gets smaller, it'll automatically resize to this type of a list view. Now that gives users a different experience. For example, in this type of a form where I have open, won, and lost opportunities all in one form, it's fine on this screen, which happens to be my laptop screen. But if I move this over to my large monitor, all of these would expand. They would change automatically to this read-only grid, and they maybe wouldn't look as nice. So one of your options too for these subgrids is to force this view so that no matter what size of screen we're on, it's going to show this card type view, which is a nice interface. Just gives me some basic information and more of a graphical interface. So you can do that as well, is to update all of your subgrids to have this type of a view for a nicer look and feel. So let's go back and look at some of the different kinds of views, the different fun views, I guess, that we have that are available. And again, for any of the navigation areas here. So we're back on all opportunities. Let's look first at the calendar view. So you're probably familiar with this from the activities area. They already have a calendar view. But if you have any type of a record, so opportunities, maybe it's cases or some other type of record that you use CE for, if dates are important, you can use a calendar view for any type of any table in the system. So here I'm looking at all my opportunities by estimated close date. So I can really clearly see what I expect to close by the end of the month here. I can click on them to see more information, going into the more details if I wanted to open the form. And we can see there's some color coding here as well. You can pick a choice field and color code by rating or status, things like that as well. So it's a different option for an interface if the calendar view would make sense for your company. Another one that is available is the Kanban board. So the Kanban will give me two different options, and it can be configured depending on which table we're looking at. So this one that we're looking at right now for the opportunities is based on the business process bar. So I have a business process for my opportunity. I go through the qualify, develop, propose, and close stages. And this shows me really clearly who's in each stage, so I can look at each of the opportunities. If they're closed, I'm not able to edit, but if they're open, I can edit right in here as well. So I can interact slightly. I get some totals for each of the opportunity amounts that are in the stage, along with the count of opportunities that are in there. And if I know, for instance, that this opportunity is moving to develop, I can just simply drag and drop it into the develop stage. And it's going to pop up a screen here with the information for the qualify right on my screen. I can check to make sure I have all of the fields filled out and move it to the next stage to commit that move. I also have, besides the Kanban of the process bar, I can also use the status. And so that's for opportunities, the open, won, and lost status. So now it's showing me all of my opportunities by status here. Again, same idea. I get my totals at the top and I can edit. But if I know that this opportunity is closed, again, simply drag and drop it, and I'll be presented with the close opportunity screen. And I can say, okay, here to commit that. So just a different way to work with your records, to be able to interact right in here and drag and drop and have a different interface for managing that. Now, if you're using the default Sales Hub app, you may be already familiar with this, but it's called the pipeline view. And if you're using a custom app, but with opportunities, if you don't see this view, it's something that you can definitely look into. It's specific to the opportunity area, and it gives us some really great information to help us manage our sales. So we look at this at the bottom here is the view that we have been looking at this whole time. In this case, it's read only, but all of the controls that we've already looked at, the colors, the jump bar, the group by, that all can be incorporated into this bottom view here. In the middle, we have a deal tracker, which is a bubble chart. And clicking on any of the bubbles in the chart is going to show me the opportunity on the right-hand side. So it's a smaller form, but I'm able to completely interact with it, make any changes that I need, and hover through. As I hover on any of the bubbles in the item, I can see some really high-level information about each as well. I'm just going to close this so that we have more information here. Up at the top, you'll see that we have some KPIs. So we have pipeline value, count of deals, how much is won versus lost, etc. I can click on these in order to filter the information down below as well. Now you'll see here that we do have a sales funnel. The sales funnel is just another option from Deal Tracker, gives me a graphical view of the records shown below. I can use that to filter. So if I click on the close, for example, I can see now I have 5 records below that are in my close stage. I have one that's still open. Maybe I want to check into that to see if it's ready to be closed. And in the Deal Tracker, my bubble has now been updated. So I'm able to see just those 5 records on the Deal Tracker so I can see my timeline. You'll also notice that my pipeline values up above have updated to only show me those numbers, particularly the ones that are in the close stage. So in this pipeline view, I have the option default to the combo here where I see the deal tracker and the list. I can change my metrics that are showing at the top, so you can turn them on or off, and I can even create new ones based on any fields. If you have a custom field that you'd like to use, you can do that, and we have our basic aggregate functions available. So if I change this to my list view, you'll see now that I have just the regular view here down below, but I have my pipeline up top. So no matter what I'm picking here in the list, I can see these KPIs on the top, even though I'm interacting with a normal list. So you can keep that in mind if it's not something that you have enabled right now for the pipeline. It's something that can be turned on for your environment quite quickly. Now we have the most common view to look at with the current version of Dynamics CE. It's called the focused view. And if you're using one of the main sales or service apps, you'll probably already be familiar with this view. Or if you've used the Sales Accelerator in the past, it's very similar look and feel, but now the focused view is available for all of these main navigation areas that come in CE. If you're using an app that isn't one of the default sales or service hubs, you may need to enable the focus view in order to see this in your system. Otherwise, it should just be available out of the box. So what is the focused view? We've been looking at the views more as a grid list. So every record has its own row in a grid. These are the exact same records that we've been looking at, but they look a little bit more graphical, more of a card view. Instead of seeing the name of the opportunity, we're seeing our contact's name and their position, and then the information about the opportunity. But I'm also seeing activities. So we can see here that I have all of the lists of all of my opportunities, and I can see which have action items. So I can quickly look at this one here. I have a to-do on this. I'm supposed to prepare a task estimate. If I click on it, it's going to open up my task. I can enter in information, maybe close a task, say it's done, and update right from here without having to navigate to the form, look in my activity list and find it. I can just quickly open the activities right from that focused view. So it's a really great way for me to see what my to-dos are, make sure I'm following up on my open activities. I can see them very clearly here. And then of course, similar to how we saw the record set navigation earlier, as I click on the different records on the left-hand side, the form on the right is updating. I do have the same ability to search, the same we did before with my search items, or I have some filter here as well, and options for sorting. So while the other views we highlighted today need to be updated in the backend solution, as I mentioned, this focus view does not. It is out of the box now with the current versions of CE. So if you don't see it, it can be enabled really quickly in your sales app or in your custom app by your administrator. So if you don't see it today, I recommend looking into it. It's a great way to enhance the experience within Dynamics CE and manage your work. So that was a really quick overview of some of the options available to enhance the user experience in CE. We highlighted really only a few of the options for formatting views and hopefully gave you an idea of ways the interface can be enhanced for your users. As a note, we're able to select which type of view is available for each navigation area. So maybe the calendar view is enabled for opportunities, but not accounts. Or we can also select the default view type for each individual view as well, if that makes sense for your company. I hope you're able to utilize some of the information presented today to enhance the experience in CE. Thanks so much for joining us. Katie, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks, Leanne. So if anyone does have any questions, please enter them into the question area in the control panel. And if you have submitted a question, we will follow up with you through email within 24 hours after this webinar is posted. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.